are in listen-only mode.
Good evening. This is Don Moss with the Saybrook College of Integrative Medicine and Health Sciences. Welcome to our webinar this evening, Fit versus Frail, Nutrition and Exercise for Maintaining Strength, Function, and Independence While Aging. I'm going to begin, as is the custom in our college, with a moment of meditation. I want to welcome all of our attendees and invite each of you to get comfortable there where you are in your chairs or in whatever position you're in. Take a moment, setting aside any baggage of the day, any distractions, and go inside yourself now for a few moments, allowing your body to relax, allowing your mind to quiet, finding your center within yourself, taking long, slow, comfortable breaths, relaxing your body and quieting your mind. With each breath you take, you'll notice just a slight increase of tension as you inhale, and then a deep relaxation and letting go as you exhale. Your body's relaxing, your mind quieting, and now we return to the webinar. Again, I welcome you to this webinar on behalf of the College of Integrative Medicine and Health Sciences. Our speaker this evening is Jeannemarie M. Beiseigel, PhD, registered dietitian, licensed dietitian. She earned her master's and PhD degrees from Virginia Polytechnic, did an internship at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and did postdoc research through the USDA. She served as senior scientist for the Bell Institute of Food and Nutrition with General Mills, and spent 6 years doing research and development in the food and dietary supplement industries, where she reviewed the science and actively monitored field progress and regulation of the functional ingredients in foods and dietary supplements. I welcome her and look forward to her presentation. Just a couple of little bits of housekeeping. Unfortunately, because we never know how many persons to expect for the webinar, we have to use the GoToWebinar platform, which does not allow your webcams to be shown, and you are all muted. However, you're welcome to submit questions at any time through the chat box on your GoToWebinar panel. I will also monitor the question box in case any of you have trouble using the chat box, but if possible, please use the chat box, which is easier for us to read. Periodically, Jeannemarie will let me know if there's a break in her presentation to discuss any questions. And thank you for joining us this evening. Okay, Jeannemarie, go ahead.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. It's a little hard for me to sit here and talk to myself at a computer. I'm used to teaching in front of people. I teach at University of St. Thomas here in St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I also give lectures and talks primarily along campus. I used to give them when I worked in the food industry to different groups of people, and used to looking at people and having their body language tell me if they're falling asleep, if they have questions, if they're following me or whatnot. So hopefully I can speak at a pace that is able to keep everyone following along. So without further ado, when Don asked me to give a talk to this group at Saybrook tonight, I thought, well, this is great. What can I possibly talk about that will maybe hold everyone's interest? Well, where is everyone? Well, we're all getting older. There's not a single person here in this group that's not aging. And in fact, we are among probably the majority of Americans who in the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years will be entering retirement. And as such, we will be within a unique population of a group of people who are entering an age where there's going to be more older Americans, those over the age of 65, than there will be children. So why is this significant? This is significant because we're keeping people alive longer. Our healthcare is phenomenal. We're living longer. We're living in our own homes longer. We're living in hospitals longer. People are just living longer. That's great. However, we're not necessarily living healthier longer. We're keeping people alive and living with chronic disease, disability, and our healthcare dollars are being stretched. Our independence is also being stretched and lost as such. So when you think about investing in your future, those of you who are students or faculty and staff, you've all thought about it. Usually you'll think about maybe your IRAs, your pension plan, Social Security, reverse mortgage, stocks, bonds, financial things, those. You're looking forward to retirement and hopefully having some fun, getting on the beach, maybe doing that long hike that you want to get to do. How many of you are adding to that list diet and exercise as part of your investment for your future? Well, finances will only take you so far. The diet and the exercise is going with what really build and lead the foundation for your future. Everyone gets older. However, the rate at which we get older is determined by not only your genes, but how they interact with the environment and your lifestyle. We're all dealt a set of cards. That's your genetics. However you play those cards is up to you. So nutrition, exercise, stress management, those are things that within a certain degree are within your control, and they influence the rate of aging. So by aging, I don't mean the 365 days that pass each year. I mean the acquiring of DNA damage, cellular damage, destruction to systems, and ultimately the toll that takes on your body and your independence. Physiological versus chronological age. Let's just imagine these two women are the same chronological age, number of years. Physiologically, something tells me they're a little different. Physiological age is the accumulation of cellular changes over time that ultimately lead to where you end up at 65, at 75. How likely you are to have disease, how likely you are to get over and get back on your feet after that condition. All of us are going to undergo body compositional changes as we get older. Those changes actually occur depressingly early. We start to accumulate more fat in replacement of muscle and bone. So we get a decrease in lean muscle mass. That's the mass that is muscle, it's tissue, it's your organs. It's what basically regulates your metabolic rate. In replace of that, we get more fat mass. We get it around our hips, thighs, belly, in and around vital organs, and within your muscle. These changes, this isn't a very good image I'm seeing now, but these changes that occur over time in muscle mass and lean body mass lead to our decline in muscle mass and lean body mass. In early life, we're growing as children. Around the ages of 20, 30, we level off. And then after about that age of 30, we start a slow, hopefully slow, decline in the amount of muscle mass and muscle strength that you have. However, there's differences in that rate of decline, and how those differences occur is dependent on your lifestyle in many parts. Faster rates of decline lead to disability, this disability threshold. Once you hit above this threshold, that's approximately where we enter the condition known as sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is age-related decline in muscle mass and muscle strength. It starts to occur actually after the age of 30 that we lose this muscle mass and muscle strength. It progresses even more so after the age of 60. Sarcopenia is when it becomes significant enough that that's considered disability. You can see right here these two muscle biopsy or muscle cross sections of a femur, where here you have nice muscular tissue. Here you can see in the older individual, you've got a lessen of the muscle tissue, you've got more integration of fat tissue within the muscle. That actually will progress even further as this individual gets older. That'll lead to a loss of lean body mass, loss of strength, and increase in susceptibility for chronic disease. Here you can see, just comparing the two arms, one clearly has more muscle mass than the other. These two individuals might have the same weight, body mass index, but clearly there's a difference in metabolic function and strength between these two individuals. So the physiological effects of this loss of muscle mass: decreased energy expenditure. That means you need more calories each day, fewer calories each day, just to maintain your weight. Decreased insulin sensitivity, increased likelihood of diabetes. Decreased strength and balance, increased inflammation, increased risk of chronic disease. Increased risk of falls, increased risk of mortality. All of that just from a decrease in muscle mass? Yeah. Those are the physiological effects. These are what I call the real-life effects. When you can't carry your own 10-pound bag of groceries into your house, or you can't put them away. You can't walk a mile without feeling too exhausted. You can't climb the stairs in your bedroom, so you have to move everything to one floor. You can't get up from the fall after you've fallen. You can't get up from the toilet without help. Ultimately, it's a loss of independence for people, and it can actually be a loss of life. Muscle weakness is the #1 risk factor for falls, and falls are the #1 cause of fractures, hospital trauma admissions, and injury-related deaths. It takes a toll on the individual, it takes a toll on our nation's healthcare. Over 1.5% of our healthcare dollars are spent on direct costs due to sarcopenia. Now factor in the indirect cost of that, of remodeling homes, bringing in additional healthcare, etc. So muscle mass and strength. I just showed you muscle mass declines. Strength actually declines faster. The two are not the same. Along with muscle mass, the loss in tissue, you also have strength changes that occur due to changes in that tissue. You have a reduction in the number of neuromuscular functions. That means that brain to muscle connection is being lost. You can't fire muscles as fast. You can't respond and react as quickly. Basically, reduce nerve signaling to those muscles. You get a reduction in the number of the length of cross fibers between muscles. The muscle fibers actually shorten, and so they're not as strong and powerful as they once were. And then lastly, you get this change in the type of muscle fiber. Type 2 muscle fibers are those that are used for power. They're used for a very quick burst of energy. They're often associated with power lifters, the type 2 muscle fiber. Type 1 muscle fibers are those for endurance. Longer marathon type training is what oftentimes we think of when we think of type 1 muscle fiber. What this means for the body, however, as we get older, is that type 2 loss of fiber means that short burst of activity, getting up from a chair, turning quickly, redoing those movements, you get more exhausted or you're not able to do it because of that change in muscle type. Getting frail early is shortening your lifespan. for many people. This study looked at, compared people over the course of 3 years, and they were elderly individuals. At baseline, none of them were frail, but those who were, I'm sorry, all of them were healthy at baseline. Those who had indicators of frailty, however, had a much greater risk of death over those 3 years than those who started out with no indicators of frailty. So, the earlier you can start prevention of frailty and sarcopenia, the more likely you have of living a longer, healthier life. So is sarcopenia inevitable? No. Sarcopenia, as I mentioned, is a decrease in muscle strength and muscle weakness that leads to a loss of independence. It's due to multifactorial reasons. You have nutritional, hormonal, metabolic, immunological factors. All of these interface along with the changes in muscle tissue in order to influence muscle mass and muscle strength. That then leads to sarcopenia when physical activity is also declined. Physical activity usually declines as a result of these changes in muscle mass and muscle function. However, if you're able to maintain or intervene here with physical activity, if you can intervene here with nutritional factors or other lifestyle factors, you can delay these changes in muscle mass and muscle strength and prolong the possible onset of sarcopenia. So the idea is to start early. Most of the research in sarcopenia is after people have already developed sarcopenia. There's not that much research when it comes to actual prevention. That's because these studies would take a very long time, and only recently have we started taking a look at this condition. Ideally, you'll start preventing aging in childhood. The way to do this is to develop a variety of athletic skills early in life. By developing that variety of athletic skills early in life, you can call on those athletic skills later in life. Think about jump rope, skating, riding a bike. Those skills developed earlier in life help you actually retain those neuromuscular junctions and actually muscle memory later in life. Developing a variety of taste for healthy foods earlier in life is also critical. Trying to get older people to change their diet habits, start liking foods, or even become acceptable of trying different foods after the age of 20, 30, 40, it's extremely challenging. So developing wider variety of taste buds as children is very important for lifelong health. So after childhood, it's really about maximizing and maintaining muscle mass and muscle strength in adulthood. The more you have, the more you have to lose. So it's about maximizing it and then delaying the loss. And so in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, I think of 3 main factors for healthy aging. They're exercise, mindfulness, and diet. I highlighted exercise here because I'm going to talk about that first. Regular planned exercise is significantly a factor in reducing the riskhood of frailty. People who engage in regular planned exercise have much more stronger body composition, stronger heart rate. They also have much greater success when they take on a new exercise. So a lot of people, for example, they do some sort of aerobic activity. However, sadly, only 5% of older Americans partake in strength training activity. However, those people, as long as they are maintaining some form of aerobic activity, their strength gains, once they start a strength training program, are much more rapid and much more successful. So basically, the summary there is do something, anything. The longer we sit, the poorer our health is. So it's about incorporating activities of daily life every day, but then also planned physical activity. That planned physical activity, meaning exercise, is very important. Activities of daily life are no longer enough. We're not lifting our garage door. We're not washing things by hand. Our activities of daily life are not all-encompassing. So it is pretty essential that we do planned physical activities each day. Aerobic activity, balanced strength training, flexibility. So the aerobic training. This is the cardiovascular type training. It strengthens your heart. It strengthens your muscle and your mind, your lung capacity. This is making everyday tasks easier. It makes you able to go that mile and then some. Strength training is critical for building muscle mass, and not enough people do it. Strength training or resistance training, however you want to call it, it involves pushing your muscles against some heavier force, essentially, to counteract their motion and make them stronger. Free weights, dumbbells, weight machines, body weight exercises such as push-ups, sitting wall stances, resistance bands, all of these have shown to help build resistance, build strength. And regardless of what age you start undertaking it, you can reverse some of the muscle loss that has occurred, perhaps with aging. Muscle strength training is an anabolic stimulus. It's going to signal to the muscles to start rebuilding. Without that stimulus, your muscle's not going to rebuild bigger, better, stronger. Two other parts that are critical as we get older, and by older I mean after the age of 30, are balance training and flexibility. If you haven't tried standing on one leg recently, give it a try. It's not as easy as it was when you were 10, let me tell you. So, flexibility training, balance training. Balance training builds those neuromuscular communications, the ones that are lost, that mind-muscle connection. The small bones in your ankles, the quick reflexes of your core, these muscles need to be strengthened and challenged regularly, and balance training will do that. Flexibility training enhances range of motion. We get stiff as we get older. We have shortened muscle length. Our ligaments are tight. This leads to shortened range of motion. People can't put their groceries away because they can't reach up over their head. Flexibility can help with that. Types of exercises that go into this: standing on one leg, yoga, tai chi, core training. These should be undertaken at first with the advice of a physical therapist, ideally, who can identify muscle imbalances, give you proper guidance, and then you can, if you're just getting back into this, practice those regularly and then promote and advance along the way. Other benefits of exercise beyond strengthening muscle: improving sleep quality. Sleep is essential for circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm means that your hormones are being put out the right times. Growth hormone is put out during high-quality sleep overnight. With impaired sleep quality, you have impaired growth hormone. With impaired growth hormone, you have reduced muscle synthesis. You have improved mood with sleep, improved with exercise. With socialization, oftentimes is exercise. Sense of pride, reduces chronic pain, maintains healthy weight. And exercise actually is your body's stimulant of antioxidant systems. Exercise promotes your body's own anti-inflammatory and antioxidant systems, which are critical as we get older. So the second component I think of is diet. Diet. So you're probably aware that muscles build up of protein, and we need to consume protein in order to continue to rebuild muscle, because all throughout life, regardless of what we're doing, we're constantly in a state of breaking down and rebuilding muscle. However, muscle protein synthesis declines with age. As we get older, we get in a condition of anabolic resistance. The resistant side gets stronger. What that means is we are resistant to rebuilding muscle, the anabolism part. This is a variety of different reasons go into this, but as a result, our muscles don't respond as much to the stimuli we put in. That stimuli being dietary sources or exercise. As such, you can see here that in a young individual, a 10-gram load of protein will stimulate muscle synthesis. However, an older individual will not respond nearly as much to that same 10-gram amount of protein. More is needed. More dietary protein is needed in order to stimulate protein muscle synthesis to the same degree as young adults. So we're constantly in a state of muscle protein synthesis and muscle protein breakdown. If we don't want this breakdown to take control, we need to continually re-stimulate synthesis. In order to do that, we need anabolic markers, stimuli, dietary protein, and exercise. As we get older, we need more of the dietary protein. As we get older, and actually just in many people's lives, we fall into what we call kind of a tea and toast diet or a tea and toast syndrome. This is where we get plenty of protein in our diets, 90 grams, let's say. However, because we're not distributing it evenly, we're not making the most of it. Tea and toast syndrome or tea and toast diet is, for example, a breakfast that contains tea and toast, jam, I don't know, call it even some peanut butter on there. Not much protein, not much high quality protein. Lunch, we get a little bit more. Soup, crackers, etc., maybe 20 grams of protein. And then we've got the big steak at dinner. So we've got, over the course of a day, plenty of protein. But because we're unevenly distributing it, we are not maintaining ourselves in this area of maximal protein synthesis. And as we get older, these smaller amounts of protein don't stimulate the body to rebuild muscle along the way. So what would be more ideal is to take that 90 grams of protein and distribute it across 3 meals. The challenge oftentimes comes with breakfast. So it's about getting protein in throughout the day, larger amounts distributed. The goal for practice is 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal, high quality protein. By high quality, I'm talking complete essential amino acids, high bioavailability. What that generally means is animal sources. Dairy, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, regular cheese, milk, seafood, lean meats, eggs, whey protein powder, or tofu, tempeh, soybeans, which are all forms of soy. The thing when I'm telling people to add more protein, or if I'm talking about them with whole grains or anything, people are very quick to add things to their diet. The watch out is that we don't want to add unnecessary weight. So it's about using that protein in place of other macronutrients. So we want to, if we're adding protein at breakfast, we want to be replacing that protein in place of fats or carbohydrates. We want to be redistributing the protein throughout the day. So it's not in addition to that 60 grams at dinner, it is redistributing. So for the nutritionist out there that will be talking with others about this, it's about the message needs to be delivered in the right context, because the side effects will be unnecessary weight gain, which will be detrimental to the desired outcome. Also, the RDA for protein, as you may know, is 0.8 grams per kg. You'll note that this is much higher. It's quite likely that the RDA will be changed, hopefully within the next few years, to reflect the higher needs of the older population. This is what's probably recommended by most people working with the older population, about 1.2 to 1.6, or twice the RDA. When strength training is being done, it acts as an anabolic stimuli. But in order to really rebuild that muscle, you need to be bringing in protein along with it, and timed right there with the exercise pretty much. So within an hour after strength training, it's ideal to obtain a source of high quality protein. 20 grams is ideal to rebuild that muscle and start the synthesis part right away and stop the breakdown. You've probably heard a lot about vitamin D. It's in the news quite frequently. One thing that we do know for sure about vitamin D is that it's associated with muscle strength, and it reduces the incidence of falls in the elderly, falls and fractures. There's vitamin D receptors on the muscle, and vitamin D is associated with muscle protein synthesis and ATP, or energy production, within the muscle. Older individuals with low serum vitamin D are shown to have lower muscle strength and more frequent falls. Supplementation has been shown to reduce the incidence of falls and improve symptoms of frailty in the older population. It's now recommended that older individuals get typically a vitamin D3 supplementation. We want to normalize serum vitamin D levels to greater than 30 nanograms per mil if you have the ability to test it. Otherwise, generally recommending about 1,000 international units a day is perfectly safe for the majority. Vitamin D is not found in many foods, and relying on sunlight for most people, particularly as we get older, is not a reliable source of vitamin D. The IOM recommends that people with body mass index over 25 actually consume safely from diet and supplement up to 4,000 international units a day. This is because overweight and obesity is associated with inflammation and reduced serum vitamin D levels, so higher amounts may be needed. It's also very important to make sure that adequate dietary calcium is coming in, because excessive vitamin D without dietary calcium can have a detrimental effect on bone and cardiovascular function. So ensuring that both of those are being consumed. The third part of diet are those defendants. We've got inflammation and oxidation taking a toll on our body cells throughout life. As we get older, our protective defenses are down. That ultimately leads to accumulation of muscle damage that's occurring. However, diets high in fruits, vegetables, nuts, fish, seafood, and monounsaturated fats are all associated with reduced incidence of frailty. It's hypothesized that it's because of the natural antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents within these diets, as well as the low amount of saturated fats and inflammatory agents such as added sugars. Diets low in vitamins D, E, C, and carotenoids are shown to be associated with inflammation and frailty and sarcopenia. And then lastly, fish oil supplementation. Omega-3s are shown to improve strength gains along with resistance training, more so than resistance training alone. Omega-3s are underconsumed in relation to the other essential fat, which is omega-6s. So improving the balance of those in the diet can help reduce inflammation and actually enhance strength gains, probably at all ages. So the recommendation is to consume a variety of plant foods in your diet, including unsaturated fats, lean proteins, as well as seafoods. Limiting saturated fats, processed meats, refined grains, including those omega-3s. To put this into practice, there are several diets out there that you can look at as guidances. The Mediterranean diet has been associated with reduced incidence of frailty in the elder population, or diets consistent with Mediterranean type. So again, high in these monounsaturated fats and plant foods. While I talk about diets high in plant foods, I'm not negating the importance of the protein that you get from lean meats and low-fat dairy. They both need to be part of these healthy diets. DASH is another example, the DASH diet, the Nordic diet. There's several heritage type diets that are consistent with this message. Some other things to be aware of and possibly consider or keep an eye on as far as research goes. Leucine it's an essential amino acid, and it is an amino acid that's shown to stimulate muscle protein synthesis and prevent breakdown. So, including this at about 2 to 5 grams per meal, either within the food itself, beef, chicken, pork, or adding it to meals. A concern is that, rightly so, we're seeing a lot more vegetarians, we're seeing more vegans in the world. As these groups get older, we don't know the research thus far, but it's likely that they won't have the adequate amino acid profile to support adequate muscle function as they get older. Incorporating more branched chain amino acids, particularly leucine, into their diet may be important for preventing frailty. Creatine. You've probably heard this along with bodybuilding. Well, you can leave that aside. I think of it more as a brain and muscle building for the elderly. Creatine is it's an amino acid that's stored in the muscle. It's for power. It has been shown to help with activities of daily life in the elderly, activities such as getting up from the chair. It also is a nutrient for the brain, so it enhances cognitive processing and offers neuroprotection. It's being investigated for things such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Ideally, exercise is being conducted. Creatine would be used post-exercise. Coenzyme Q10 is another one that is worthy of keeping an eye on. Coenzyme Q10 has been shown to reduce DNA damage through antioxidant capacity and also enhance exercise tolerance in the elderly. So if you can enhance exercise tolerance, you're more likely to have someone perform the exercise. Along with the reduced DNA damage, you're more likely to have beneficial effects on physiology. And then there's also populations that are using certain medications, such as statins, which reduce the body's ability to create coenzyme Q10. And for them, supplementation might even be more important. And then lastly, melatonin. I mentioned the importance of sleep, the role sleep plays on promotion of growth hormone, and then melatonin is actually produced in your body, and it's an antioxidant. However, altered sleep patterns lead to disruption of circadian rhythm, and melatonin supplementation may be beneficial in the elderly in order to help normalize circadian rhythm, sleep, and antioxidant status. These are all worthy of considering, monitoring, and possibly on an individual level, working with a patient and giving a try to. The last one I'm going to talk about is mindfulness. Mindfulness, in my mind, my perspective, takes many different functions. In one, it's when your body is exercising. Mind-to-muscle awareness is critical. I see people go through the motions of exercising. I see people go through the motions of lifting weights. Putting your mind to your muscle has been shown to enhance strength gains. It is powering your muscle through your mind so that you have more control over that muscle. It also helps promote postural balance and reduces falls. So those core muscles, really honing into them is very important, and learning where those muscles are, how to fire them mentally. Mental stress increases inflammation. Stress reduction practices can protect mental and physical health. Relaxation techniques can mitigate chronic pain. Visualization can promote self-efficacy and motivation for exercise or any healthy lifestyle factor. So it's about working with someone to help them visualize themselves on performing exercises even before they perform them, visualizing themselves being successful at doing things. If they can visualize themselves doing something, they're more likely to be able to do it. When working with patients, friends, family, etc., just some suggestions as far as practicing and consulting. Remember your scope of practice. I'm talking to the nutritionists out there who are nutrition trained. We're not physical therapists. We cannot assess muscle imbalances, weakness. We can be encouraging exercise, but we can't necessarily train on how to perform the exercise, nor should we. We should refer to physical therapist, exercise specialist for such thing, and do so, because this is the beauty of working in a healthcare system, is working with these other specializations and complementing each other. Referring to psychologists for mental health consults, working with psychologists. Treating the person, not the condition. You want to individualize all of your recommendations and goals. Make recipes for individuals, meal plans, exercise plans that fit the person and the person's lifestyle. Consider financial obstacles. I mentioned several things that may be dietary supplements here and may be out of reach for certain people. Work within their scope of financial obstacles, their knowledge and learning gaps. Deliver the message in ways that it can be heard and understood and implemented. Always consider comorbidities. We're working with populations in today's society that is inherently unhealthy. We've got numerous chronic diseases, and we always have to consider them first, probably, and foremost. Work with the primary care doctor and have your treatment complement that that's already addressing their comorbidities. Keep an eye on the research. This is a very sarcopenia, aging, preventing or maintaining independence, very hot area of research, and particularly when it comes to preventative and lifestyle management. We're finding that treatment options such as hormone replacement, the risks outweigh the benefits. However, prevention and lifestyle treatment are viable solutions. Whenever you're practicing with dietary supplements, always consider safety, efficacy, and first, and recognize that price does not equal quality. When you're working with, for example, protein powders and older individuals, consider what the cost of potential heavy metal contamination might do to the kidney system. You want to be guiding them towards quality and possibly doing a little bit of research. Two areas I suggest are Consumer Lab, which looks at negative byproducts and the actual label claims, and then Natural Medicines Database to look for efficacy, safety, quality of research, and then of course also your own research, PubMed, etc. So, wow, that is summing it up. So what I say, forget aging gracefully, fight hard to stay fit with diet, exercise, and mental awareness. And with that, I will open it up to questions and discussion. Don, can you hear me?
Sorry, I was muted. I had to unmute.
Don, you're the one I did not expect to fall asleep.
I was not sleeping. Thank you very much, Jeannemarie, for what was a good example of an integrated presentation, touching on the body, touching on the mind, and with the pictures, I think, touching on the spirit as well. And also touching on the interprofessional collaboration, which is such an emerging, important part of integrative medicine. We will be working in teams more and more frequently in the future. So I would invite any questions or comments. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions or comments in the chat box. We also have several faculty members who are present as well. We have Dr. Eric Wilmarth and Dr. Luann Fortune. I welcome, they actually have audio, so I welcome them to make any comments or pose any questions.
Jeannemarie, it's Luann, and I want to compliment you on a very well-balanced and thorough presentation. And I particularly appreciated the way that you touched on many of the aspects of mind, body, and spirit as they come together. From the standpoint of just my own personal interest, where would you suggest one begin in evaluating their own personal diet to determine whether or not they're getting appropriate nutrition for their own personal concerns?
That's a very good question. I would look primarily at, are you getting variety of foods across the food categories? And within the categories, is there variety? We need over 40 nutrients, and you can only get them from a variety of foods. With that variety, are you distributing things pretty well? And I'm talking mainly about the protein. That breakfast protein is where a lot of us, myself included, have a big challenge. And if you're consuming mainly a plant-based diet, which is preferred, that breakfast protein becomes even more of a challenge. So getting 20, 30 grams of a high-quality protein at the earlier meals in the day can become difficult, even with all of our food available that we have now. Younger individuals have the ability to take a 60-gram load at once and have that continue to work for them throughout 24 hours. Older individuals, even my own age, a smaller dose more frequently is needed in order to maintain that anabolic muscle replacement. So it's about taking that, it's about distributing the protein throughout the day. But also, making sure that you are getting enough variety. Are you getting some fish? Are your fruits and vegetables different colors? Those types of things, I would say, are critical.
Thank you, Jeannemarie, for addressing that question. I think, let me give a couple of questions from attendees, and then I think Eric Wilmarth was also trying to say something a moment ago. Oh, there he is. Pia Fontaine simply said hello, greeting you. Kristen Jameson said, this is a wonderful presentation. I need to shift to my phone to listen. Would like to watch the PowerPoint later. Will it be available? So what do you think on that question?
Oh, well, I thought it was available. You recorded it.
Yeah,
correct?
That's right. The entire thing is being recorded, so we can make the recording itself available rather than the PowerPoints. So good, thank you.
Oh,
Next question, go ahead. Were you going to say?
Will the PowerPoint be available along with the recording? Is it recorded that way?
Well, it's visible in the recording.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And then Annapurni Ramasubramanian, who teaches in our whole medical systems course. She's our expert on Ayurvedic medicine. And she asked the question, are legumes or lentils considered high quality protein?
Unfortunately, no. They're not. They're limited in at least, I believe, 2 of the essential amino acids. They're not completely lacking them, but they're limited. And then because of the bioavailability, because they're plant-based sources, we don't absorb the proteins from them as well. If you're consuming beans, lentils, as a source of protein, you need to get a complementary source, so grains. For younger individuals, we say as long as the whole diet consumes multiple sources of plants, it's building up the full spectrum of amino acids. I have not seen the research in older individuals to say that it's a whole diet as opposed to individual meals. So my recommendation would be, if you're consuming beans at breakfast, to have some grains along with that in order to, within that same meal, have the full spectrum of amino acids. If that answer the question? It's difficult with typing.
Yes. Okay. And then also from Annapurni, she asked just an elaboration, like beans, yellow lentils, etc. So does that change anything that you said?
No, they fall into the same category.
All right. And then Catherine Daniels Landeros said, I see this webinar is being recorded. Will we be able to have access to it later? And yes, all attendees will be able to access this later. Contact me by email and I will send you the link. And I believe I'm going to be able to send the link to everyone who registered. Another question, and then we'll get to Dr. Wilmarth. How healthy is soy to build body protein? What is the latest research about the link between soy and cancer?
So I think I am, if I'm stumbling. So my perspective is soy is healthy if it is primarily from soy foods. Tofu, soybeans, can be perfectly healthy. If it is your main and only source of protein in your diet, you might want to incorporate greater variety of plant sources and pull out a little bit of the soy, particularly if you're at risk for breast cancer, uterine cancer, some sort of hormonal-based cancer, being a family risk or individual risk. That said, even people with that risk can still consume soy in moderate amounts, perfectly safe. When it comes to supplementing soy isoflavone powders as your main source of soy supplementation, again, it's about weighing your personal risk with the benefit of consuming a plant-based source. When it comes to anabolic protein for muscle building, whey does seem to be the best. There are studies that are head-to-head, whey versus casein versus soy. Whey does seem to be the best. Soy, however, does come in, it looks like second, and then casein seems to be third. So it can support muscle mass growth. Yes.
Thank you. And now why don't we invite Dr. Wilmarth to ask his question?
First of all, I just wanted to thank you. It was a wonderful presentation that somewhat terrifying, being in my 60s and recognizing way too many of the patterns and predictability, especially the loss of strength and things like that have become really noticeable. Would you recommend, in terms of getting back into athletic exercise, things like that, any particular style of getting back, in terms of, do you go back to a gym and work on weight machines, or do you, stick to aerobics, or do you have a general recommendation?
I would recommend strength be probably the key part, the key one, meaning resistance training, weights, machine type of weight-based training. If it's been a very long time since you've done that type of training, I would recommend working with someone that can show you the proper form, because that's what I see a lot, are people leading themselves in the direction of getting injured and setting themselves out because they're using improper form. So getting proper form, knowing where to start, and then progressing from there. But I would lean, if it was one versus the other, which it shouldn't be, I would lean towards favoring the muscle strengthening exercises and then building more physical activity into your daily life for the cardiovascular. And then as far as safety goes, starting off with machine-based weight training or body strengthening. But I would lean towards muscle strengthening as opposed to, focusing on starting to run.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Jeannemarie. Let me see. I think there's another question here. What are good sources of plant-based protein for those who are vegetarian, and are they as effective as meat? And that, that question, the previous question came from Kanishta Agarwal, and this one, I'm trying to see who it came from. You can go ahead and answer.
Okay, so I would say soy is the one that is considered complete, fairly well bioavailable, not as bioavailable as meat. quinoa is often said to be complete. It's not real high in protein, 8 grams per cup of, which is 200 calories. So to get 20 grams of protein from quinoa, you have to consume a lot of quinoa. Nonetheless, you can still build a plant-based diet with adequate protein, but it does take a lot, and for some individuals that may require a protein supplement, and there are now rice supplements that are the missing amino acid, it's added to them to make them more of a complete amino acid. So there's brown rice supplements, there's pea protein supplements, and even for people who are not vegetarian, these can be healthier or better because, for example, the brown rice supplement can be easier to digest, easier on the stomach than something like whey for some people or casein for some people or even soy. So when it comes to that type of thing, you know, finding one that you can tolerate well is good. But with a strictly vegan diet, it's about variety, you know, across the day. Beans, legumes, nuts, soy, those. But really, beans are probably beans, soy are the highest amounts of protein relative to calories.
Thank you. I have to say it's very hard to access the question box where most of the questions are. It's a little tiny box, and I have to scroll up and down. So I'm sorry that I'm getting to some of these questions only now. What food do you combine with beans to create a complete protein? That's coming from Kathy Daniels Landeros.
So I think of the English breakfast of beans on toast. That could be, so it could be grains, wheat, barley, rye, corn, polenta, rice and beans, Mexican. So really the grains are the ones that come to mind first. You could also, beans and I think nuts. So not peanuts, but tree nuts, I believe, would make a complementary protein for beans. Not sure how you would mix that into a meal really too much, but.
Okay, love the presentation. How much magnesium consumption is important for bones and muscles? That's from Noelle Alaita.
Very good. I had magnesium in the presentation and I took it out. So magnesium, that's probably my favorite micronutrient. About 320 to 400 milligrams a day is what's recommended. And most of us are falling short in magnesium because it's not found in high amounts in many foods. So again, variety in the diet. So getting adequate amounts, 350 to 400 milligrams a day. You get that from a variety of foods, whole grains, nuts, and or supplements. Supplements you want to be careful of because they can lead to digestive upset. Magnesium, however, does help promote testosterone production, which is a good thing for all of us, females and males as well. So that's good, and it helps enhance sleep and muscle relaxation. So 300, 400 milligrams a day is what's recommended.
Okay, Tamami Shirai asked the question. I love the question because I'm a proponent of health coaching as a good way to help people make dietary and other lifestyle changes, including exercise changes that Eric was referring to. But Tamami asks, how much health coaching would be helpful for students to achieve, for patients to achieve their individual goals? How much health coaching would be helpful?
How much? Don, I might have to refer to you. I don't know how to quantify health coaching. That, because I mean that's so individualized too, depending on what the goals are, and then what all is involved, whether their health goals are just dietary or I do want to, there's a different, when it comes to this, and Eric made me think of this about the fear factor. There's different ways also to motivate people, especially around this topic of aging. There is the, and individualizing that motivation. So there is, finding the motivation for the person. Some people, it's about they want to look forward to their older years, so they want to stay fit so they can play with their grandkids. That's a positive motivator, and that works for some people. Other people realize they don't care about playing with their grandkids. However, you talk about not being able to get out of the shower or up off the toilet by themselves, and that is the motivator for them to get to the gym and stay fit. So it's about finding the individual motivations for people, but it's, which I just find interesting, but that goes for all health topics. But as far as the how much health coaching, I think that's individualized. I don't know what you can lend to that, Don.
Okay, thank you. And would baker's yeast be a good complement? And I'm not sure whether that was a follow-up to another question, so I'm not sure whether she means to a complement to something in particular. But can you talk about baker's yeast?
So baker's yeast is sorry, the other name is escaping me. So there's baker's yeast, brewer's yeast. If it's the yeast I'm talking about, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, that would be considered actually a complete protein. And so using that in place of cheese or something like that is good. So that would be great. Just make sure it's the right yeast. There's another name for it that is escaping me at the moment. But there's different types of yeast, and one is just more of a B vitamin supplement.
Thank you.
Sure.
What about sprouts as a source of protein for vegetarians? That comes to us from Kanishka.
Well, it depends on what type of sprout you're talking about. So there are like bean sprouts, there's sprouted grains, and those, I don't know how much, if they're complete quality, they are more dense in protein, and I believe the amino acids are more absorbed. I don't know if they'd be complete though, but nonetheless you'd be getting more, so that would be helpful. But bean sprouts, the stuff I think that get put on wraps at your deli, I don't believe those would be very high in protein. So
Okay.
yeah, but sprouted grains would be good. Thank you for that addition.
Okay. And then there was a question on pea protein, peas as a form of protein.
Yep. It would still need to have a grain mixed with it, because peas fall into the beans and legume category. So sometimes you will see a protein mix that is rice and peas, or the peas will have the missing amino acid added to the mix. So if you were buying a pea protein isolate, they'll have that missing amino acid, or it'll have a rice blend with it. So it's incomplete as it is, but it's nonetheless a great source of protein if you can make it complete.
Okay. Any other faculty questions or comments for Jeannemarie?
Sorry, but I've got a pack to get over to the gym.
Oh, you and me both, Eric.
I'm going to bed. I'm getting my.
When I first saw your presentation topic, I thought, oh, she's going to talk about this unusual condition called sarcopenia, and then, oh my God, I started to realize, hey, this is what happens to too many of my friends and age peers. So I started paying a whole lot more attention. Before you started, I read your presentation a little more closely, including the PowerPoints, and realized this is what we all have to deal with. And the American lifestyle, the sedentary lifestyle with fast food and food with very poor nutritional content, would put everybody into sarcopenia probably at an earlier and earlier age. So I'm very appreciative of tonight's presentation. And again, I will right now figure out how to convert the recording so it's available. It should be available by tomorrow, so everyone who's been present tonight can also access the recording. So thank you very much for this, Jeannemarie.
Yeah, and thank you all for the wonderful questions. They were great. So.
Sorry you couldn't see us all while you're talking.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Great. Good night, everybody.